Honey can be naturally bitter or sweet, depending on the flowers a bee chooses to pollinate. A person who tolerates rather than accepts a queer person is like a bee that prefers yellow flowers but tolerates red ones because they're closer to the hive. Similarly, someone hiding their sexuality might choose the red flower because all the other bees do. But in both cases, the honey will taste bitter in the end, just like a relationship or a life built on hate, ignorance, and denial. Hello and welcome to the Developed and the Dormant, the podcast where I share stories, reflections, and insights to inspire self-development and growth in ourselves and others. I'm your humble yet entertaining host, Daryl Minor. In today's episode, I'll delve into the complexities of being a queer Black man navigating stereotypes, societal expectations, and personal growth. As per usual, I'll share personal stories, including pivotal moments and love triangles and lessons learned about the difference between acceptance and tolerance. We'll explore what it means to live authentically, overcome fears of rejection, and grow from challenges rooted in identity and love. Let me explain something to you all. While we in our communities and our societies may seem to have moved forward to be more accepting of queerness and homosexuality, let me be very clear. There is a difference between acceptance and tolerance that I think goes over the heads of most of you, even some in the gay community. Those of you who are not queer will sit up here and pretend like you're fully accepting, but you know deep down in your soul, there are some things you can't stand. There are some things you hate that you know you couldn't say out loud, that if you did, it would be an issue and you would look like the asshole, right? And there are some of you who are queer who hate some aspects about yourselves because of the straight community, right? Making us hate ourselves. And there are things within yourself that you would rather snuff out and hide and blame it on saying, I just don't want everyone to know my business. Let me make something abundantly clear to so many of you. The reason why most of you all can't act or do or be who you really want to be is for this fear of rejection, fear of being singled out, fear of being called out from other people. Let me tell you something. Like I keep saying, as you'll see in this podcast, when you get that inside right, when you know your worth and value, when you accept and wear it with pride, with who you are, right? Nothing can hurt you, right? And that trickles down even to the smallest things that may not even have to do with sexuality. The smallest things we choose to do, right? The fear of vulnerability, the fear of opening up, the fear of doing things and living in regret comes from a fear of what is everybody around me going to say, right? The amount of queer men that I have run into in this world who show me in so many minute ways, right? People can tell you, let me make something clear. People can tell you 1,000,001 things. Let me let you know something. It's not about what a bitch says. It's about what they do and their actions. We all know the phrase, actions speak louder than words, right? I cannot stand a DL man, right? And it's not about race. It's not about background, because I've known a lot of queer men from different backgrounds who are still in the closet, right? And you all have the nerve to come before someone like me who lives authentically, who lives in his truth, to feel like some of you feel like you can tell me about myself. Some of you all want to tell me how I'm wrong. Some of you all envy me. Some of you are jealous. Some of you all want to be in my business. You all have the nerve to ask me questions. How do I this and how do I that? When the reality is you're just like me, right? But what I can't stand is you will sit up here and live a lie so that everyone can leave you alone. But a person like me who's had to endure so much and been brought down, not just by strangers, but from family, teachers, kids, and people will put 1,000,000 stereotypes on me, but you get to live fine, right? When the reality is you're just like me. You know what? when I was in middle school, right, there was a time where I had to face my own sexuality, right? I used to be this person who would sit up here and comment and question and make fun of the other openly gay boys at the school, right? Me and the other girls, me and some of the guys, we would question, we would make fun of, right? And when I got to high school, I started to look like an asshole, right? Right? And I would try to rally others around me, like, look at him. Look at him. Why he this? Why he that? Right? I wanted to feel cool. I wanted to feel included, right? Whole time, I felt just like them. And that's what DL men do, right? Let's be clear about that. And I had my fair share of about 2 boys who had come before me and basically said, cut that out. And you're not getting ready to talk about me. I had nothing to say, right? Because they were fully in the right, right? I look back and I say, what a fool I was to try to sit up here and make fun of and belittle someone when I feel just the same as them. And that, dearest, is why some of these queer DL men get put in their place and they have nothing to say because they know how much of a fool they look, right? But thank goodness, in one of these situations with one of these guys, I realized, and if you look back on episode 1 of the podcast, one of the girls, Alexis, back when I was in middle school, she wanted to create so much drama for me to be in the middle of so she can get a laugh, right? But in that same situation, with more specifics and context, right, what she had done was I had made fun of one of the boys in my class commenting about his sexuality, and she went to him to let him know what I said, right? And I could see how offended he was by that. Years later, we somehow get at the same job, and the first thing I have to say to him is, I'm sorry. I'm sorry I ever did that because I'm just like you and I had no business doing that, right? That's the symbol of a person who has healed, who has moved forward, who's recognized where he was and where he wants to be, right? But some of you will never get to that point. That's why some of you have come out of the closet in old age and you got a million boyfriends, but you got a wife. You had a wife, sorry. You've got children and grandchildren, but you're sitting around here with boyfriends or you're messing around with another guy, right? Because you finally come out after all these years and finally accepted who you are. This is why some of you all will use women as a cover-up. This is why some of you all will suffer internally and rot instead of choosing to heal. Why? Because you're worried about, what is my mama gonna say? What is my daddy gonna say? What are my cousins and my uncle and my homeboys, right? Worried about everybody else's opinion. If it's not abundantly clear what this podcast is about and what I stand on is about living and being authentic, right? Not just about your sexuality, but about everything you do in life. Do it with a purpose, right? The thing about it is, I never had to come out, right? I didn't lie. I'm not going to lie, right? I've had my hard moments. I've had my moments of self-reflection, right? But I've come out of that, and now I know what I'm here to do, right? I don't shudder. I don't shy, right? I live authentically. But let me make something very clear to some of you all. Some of you all come out of a point, and not just sexuality, but some of you all come out of a point of being suppressed in your childhood or your younger years. And when you choose to break out of it, you do it recklessly, right? You do it in a way that makes you look ridiculous. You're very loud. You're very rambunctious, right? A lot of people in general like to look at people and put everything into a box of what you expect it to look like, right? So when some of these queer men that are hiding in the closet see someone who has stepped out in strength and confidence and isn't what they would expect, right? Most of you all haven't seen a male that is masculine presenting with some feminine qualities be confident and proclaim what he is without any fear of what anyone else thinks, right? You have the perception that what gay is a male that dresses in all these flamboyant colors, dyed hair, acrylics, just very, hey girl, hey. You think that that's what I am, right? But when I come to you and I'm well-rounded from tip to toe, right? I'm not trying to impress anybody. I'm not doing any cattiness. I'm not getting ready to compete with you, right? This is a person, myself, who knows his worth and value, and you've never seen that, right? You've never seen a guy who can say what he is, live proudly, live happily, and isn't this flamboyant thing that you were expecting. So you come before me and you ask me all these stupid, offensive questions. And it's not just from the guys, but what I can't stand from some of these women. Everyone wants to ask the same question. When did you come out? How did you come out? What did your parents think? How do you this? How do you that? Where do you meet guys? Right? Let me make something so abundantly clear that you all seem to keep forgetting. While I may be something that's fantastical that you've never seen before, let me make it clear. I'm still a person. Let me say that again. I'm still a person. One more time, I said I'm still a person. That seems to be something you all keep forgetting, right? Because I know a lot of my gay males out there can say, when you get to being around some quote unquote straight men and they get to knowing that you're gay, that's all they want to see you as. They don't want to see you as a man. They don't want to see you as a person, right? All they see is a gay man. How do you this? How do you that? It's so strange to see you look like us, but you don't act like us. You don't think like us. I've just never been around. I've just never seen, right? What you don't seem to understand is we're your neighbors, we're your mothers, your fathers, your cousins, we're your teachers, we're your managers, we're your coworkers. Well, that's not what you all don't seem to understand is we are people. Let me tell you something that you all also don't seem to understand. The term gay and queer, you cannot look, sound, or act. Let me make that very clear to you. You cannot look, sound, or act. Gay and queer means that you are attracted to the same gender. That is all, dearest. There's nothing else that comes with it. You can make simple assumptions about what you think and who I am, right? But just like you'll later find in some of these episodes, like I say, only I can tell you who I am, right? The thing that grinds my gears, right, is that I'm not hiding who I am, right? But I never explicitly say out loud to people that I'm gay, right? I don't want to proclaim that for everyone's ears, right? It's not because I'm hiding, but because once you've heard it from my lips, right? Everybody around me wants to start making assumptions. It goes right back to what I said. They can only see you one way, right? Now, that's not everybody. Let me make that clear. It's not everybody. But I'm speaking for those who have this internalized tolerance, these questions, this internalized hatred, right? And this goes for men and women. Because what bothers me is once you get to knowing this, you all start making all these assumptions, right? Because of my voice or my stature or the way that some of the things about me are feminine, you make all of these assumptions. And all of these assumptions and stereotypes are negative. They're always negative. You're this, so you must be that. Oh, I know you this, or I know it's that, right? You don't know anything about me, right? But that just shows how deep, right? That shows how deep of the hatred, the lack of acceptance, right? That's what tolerance is, right? It shows how ignorant some people are, how much people choose to stay woefully ignorant. And for some of these men, whether you're straight, but mostly these DL men, right? That's the tag you want to put around my neck, right? That's all you can see me. Well, I see that you're gay, right? And let me say something else. As males, sex is at the forefront of our minds, right? We're always thinking about that. That's why a lot of these young boys run rampant, right? So you wonder all of these questions. And then you see another male and you expect, well, this is how things are supposed to be. But you look like me. And that's why you get these stupid little comments where it's like, I don't care that you gay, but don't try it with me. Or I'm not into, right? And you all know, deep down in your soul, we don't give you the time of day. You want us to give you the time of day, right? You like the idea of another guy being interested in you. Also for the fact that it's quote unquote taboo, right? You like that attention. And then you feel like the man because you feel like you can get girls and guys. Let me explain something to the rest of you. You all who believe this way are disgusting. You know it. There's nothing flattering about a male that behaves in this way. You're simply fascinated at the idea that what you picture is supposed to be strong and masculine and taking action can also do and live comfortably in the feminine. Right? And for some of these people who genuinely want to know and are genuinely curious, right? Because not all of us are speaking out of malice. Not all of us are secretly plotting or having these emotions, right? Some of us genuinely want to know, and some of us want to be educated, right? So that we better know how to interact with other people so that we don't offend them. And I understand that, right? But I make it a point. I make it very clear to everyone, right? And I always say, I'm not offended. I'm not afraid to say what my sexuality is, but I always make a point to say, right? I don't like the stereotypes that people put behind that, right? It's not that you know, is that once you do know, you get to feeling like you can start putting tags on me, like you know who I am. And I say nothing about that is fair, right? And I say, let's have a reminder here that I am still a person. And don't get to feeling like you can make my sexuality what? My personality. I can claim the title as a young man. I can claim the title as a gay man. I can claim the title as a black man. But the first thing you're going to recognize me as is a man. Let's start from there. You've been so sweet. You know, I remember when I was in college, right? One of my wonderful professors, Andrea Warren, right? If you're out there, shout out to you. What a wonderful woman you are, right? I remember I came before her because I was expressing my woes about how I felt others perceived me at school, about my sexuality, and the things I had chosen to wear. I was starting to wear earrings and, different types of jewelry, right? And I felt like I was being criticized for that. Not only that, but just, talking about romance issues and situations and connections with other people, and I wanted advice, right? And I'll never forget that she told me that I was an ambassador now, right? It was my duty to educate people who were ignorant about my sexuality and the gay community. I told her, I said, it's not my job to educate these people. If you want to be a fool, that's your business. Right? But I realize it is so essential for me to spread awareness and to be the voice of progression for some people, right? To inspire and motivate, to promote change, right? And it's not just for myself, but for others who are feeling this way, some people who are ignorant. So that's why I make a point to always tell anyone who is questioning or wondering, right? I always say, this is my experience, right? These are the things that I feel that are offensive. I don't want you all get to thinking that we're all the same, right? I say things like that to make sure you know, because a lot of people, as a society, we like to put things into boxes. We like to make a lot of things black and white, and some things just simply are. Some things have a lot more color. Some things have a lot more complexity. But when you want to dwindle people down to a simple one or two, it's not fair, right? Because as humans, as I keep saying, we all desire connection. We all desire community. We all desire love. And we know if you wouldn't want it done to you, as they say in kindergarten, You know sure in the hell you wouldn't want it done to yourself. So don't do it to others. You know that. You know that. People often have told me in life that they've never met anybody like me, right? I do things in a way that they have never expected, right? Because I'm not the image of what you thought a gay male was, right? The stuff you see on TVs and movies, right? The offensive things that make some of us look bad. Most of us look bad, actually, right? And I always say, I ain't no regular black boy, right? I have ran into so many girls who see me and they think I'm going to be their good Judy, right? They think I'm going to be their gay best friend. Hey, girl, how are you? And this, that, and the third. And I'm going to be all up in, yeah, girl. And you look at, I'm not going to do that with you. I'm not going to give you no advice. I'm not getting ready to braid your hair or do your nails. There was a guy at one of the jobs that I worked, and he was, I think, the only other gay young male at that job, right? And he was much louder than I was, much more flamboyant, wanted a lot of attention, right? And when he came before some of these girls, they hyped him up. He was loud with them, twerking, acting an ass, right? And people like to always compare the gay males in their circles, right? So they see him and then they see me, right? They want to act an ass with him when they talk to him. But when he wasn't there and I stood in, right? You're not going to get that out of me. These girls toned it all the way down, right? Because I'm not a child, right? I'm an adult, right? Whatever type of relation we have at this job is what it is. We're co-workers. I'm not your good Judy, right? Right, because the thing about it is, and that's not for everybody, but some of the relationship dynamics between girls and gay males is one out of fascination. It's not built on mutual respect or mutual liking, right? It's because, oh my God, you're gay. Oh my God, I just love gay guys, right? Because I see some of these things on TikTok, right? I've seen the jokes where some of these guys will walk around and they'll say something to a girl and say, oh no, I have a boyfriend. Or, oh no, why are you talking to me? And say, girl, I'm gay. And oh my God, I just love you. I'm not going to do that with you. Because here's the difference. I'll say something to you. If you have an issue, I'll cuss you out and then I'll keep walking. I'm not getting ready to switch anything up about me, right? Because that falls into the stereotypes and the expectations of what some of these people think we are. Right? There was another time where I was in college. There was one girl where I hugged her and she allowed me to hug her like with my arms under rather than over her, right? And there was a first moment where I asked her, I forgot how it happened where we got to that conversation or that point, but I basically said to her, why do you switch up the way that we hug? And she said, because you're gay and it's fine because I know you're not attracted to me. Here's my thing, what I find offensive, right? While that may be acceptable to some of you, I have never liked people switching certain things up based off of my sexuality, right? That makes me feel singled out for something so superficial. I said, treat me as you would treat any other male, right? Let's be clear about that. If you wouldn't want another male hugging you a certain way, then do me the same way. Don't give me privileges and don't single me out because of that simply. This is a part of me. This is not my being, right? And as for some of these guys, especially these young teenagers, right? Now, of course, you would give it pass for a teenager or a child, but some things are just off limits. You get to asking me this and asking me that, and you're making jokes like I'm one of these little boys on the playground with you. I'm an adult, and you should speak to me as such. I remember a time at one of my jobs, there were two guys who were just casually saying something about queerness, and that I wonder why gay guys do so and so. And then the two of them turn their head to the left and stare me down, waiting for an answer. Or the way another boy from another job sits up here and randomly asks me, am I your type? I asked him, I didn't hear you right. Say that again. I got to make sure I heard you right. He said, am I your type? I'm like, what are you asking me this for? Right? Later, I asked him, it's like, did you say that just so it would make you feel good? Yeah, it makes me feel good about myself. Right? So you can go home and feel like, yeah, I can get girls and gay guys like me. You fucking fool. I've gotten to the point in my life where I have realized and accepted that I am strong and that I can stand against people who are simply ignorant. I feel I have a strength and an advantage because I view you as a person who is ignorant. It's a person who is a child and doesn't know anything. And you're asking me all these questions about all these things when in my mind it's so simple because I've worked through my emotions, I've worked through my pain, that I have come out a strong adult, right? There was a point in time where there's a guy at my job, another guy at my job, light skin, tall, whatever, right? And I'll admit, he's really handsome, but I was not going to say that because that's not something I come to work to do, right? But I already believe that that feeling is already in the air between us, right? But again, I wasn't going to mention anything of that. But me being who I am, someone who is charismatic and fun and likes to talk and likes to get to know people, and as I've said, this is who I want to be, right? This is who I was in my past, in my childhood. Someone who spoke to others, someone who was lively, someone who engaged, and this is who I want to be. I'm not going to shut myself out and not speak to others. This is who I want to be, right? So I ask very forward questions, right? I speak very boldly. I speak very authentically because I look back at my childhood and realize there were so many things I wanted to say, so many things I wanted to do, so many things I regret having not done. And I feel as though there are a lot of things I say that I have no regrets about because I feel you only live once. Right? You never know where what you say or what you do is going to take you, right? And I do a lot of these things for me, right? And that's just the context. So this guy often comes to work and he often wears shorts. And I made a joke. I thought it was harmless. I didn't think anything of it, right? Because this is the type of personality I have. I say, boy, you don't have a lick of hair on your legs. What do you do? Are you a swimmer? Right? What type of sports do you do? Right? Now, some of you all may think that's funny. Some of you all may think that's wild, right? That's who I am. But granted, he didn't know who I was, and he was just getting to know everyone around him. I thought what better way to do that than to say something funny, right? I think it's harmless. Long story short, he's taken aback from it, right? I sensed that. I realized it. We went our separate ways. He said, all right, I'll see you later, right? We come back maybe a few days later, and well, first I want to say I decided based off of his reaction, I thought I better give him some distance, right? I didn't want any tension, so I left it be. But being a person who has to live in authenticity and has to express and talk about the elephant in the room, I brought it up and I asked him if I made him feel a ways. And he said he did feel strange. It did come off as strange to him. And I apologized and I explained to him, as I already explained to you all, that this is who I want to be. Live in authenticity, and it was a joke, right? And I decided to bring the elephant out and talk about the elephant in the room and say, you thought it was gay, and that's why you were turned off by it. He said, no, that's not what it's about, right? And he started dancing around every other situation, saying he wouldn't say it to this person. He didn't know who anybody was, this, that, and the third. But as I think about it, I should have asked him, if a pretty girl that was his type would have commented on that, would he have made a face? Would he have been quote unquote offended, right? Now, granted, anybody could say they probably still would have been bothered no matter who it is, depending on who it is, right? But that's something I wish I had brought up because it's only because I'm a male, I feel, that's a little bit more feminine, that you have an issue, right? No matter how much you say it, this is why I say it's no matter how much a person says something, it's about their actions. And being that I mentioned sexuality, When we come back together and we get to talk a little bit longer, all he has to say, right, is questions about sexuality. How do you approach people? Where do you go to meet guys? How do you this? How do you that? I answer his questions, and I eventually tell him I can't keep answering these questions because I start to feel like I'm being put on the spot. It takes me back to being in middle school and high school, where I feel vulnerable around people who are not just ignorant, but who are willingly trying to make me uncomfortable, right? Later, I find that this person is only asking me all this stuff because he's trying to navigate his own sexuality and his own feelings. Let me make something clear. It's about how many men that I have come in contact with who are questioning their sexuality, who want to put me under a microscope. Let me make something clear to you girls and guys and anybody else who's going through this. I'm not your guidebook. I'm not your friend. I'm not some exotic being like a unicorn. I'm an adult. I'm a person. And just because you see me as this confident person, as I've shown you that nothing really gets under my skin based off of especially people who are ignorant and insecure, still does not give you the privilege nor the right to ask me a million questions so you can figure yourself out. And like I said, I'm not no regular black boy, right? So what you were expecting to ask me all these questions and just feel like you can just invade my privacy and just put me under a microscope, we are done talking, right? And you feel excluded when you see that I'm speaking to others and not to you. I'm not the type of person who is going to have an issue or have some tension and then come to you the next day and say, hey, how are you? Yeah. And then allow you to, if I give you an inch, you will take a mile, right? Because what will stop you from the next time feeling like you can start making jokes? You feel like you can start getting offensive. You start inching more and more and more, right? A line in the sand has to be drawn. And then some of you boys feel like, well, what did I do wrong? What did I this? What did I that? No, you've offended me, right? Just going back to the same guy, right? The same guy at the other job where he was flamboyant. He acted an ass. All the girls hyped him up, right? There was a girl who asked me about, having sex. I told her that is the one question I do not answer, right? That's too personal. I'll speak about that with people that I know very well. I'll speak about that with my family, right? Not people that are my coworkers, right? She couldn't understand that. She couldn't respect that, right? So she goes to the other guy and asks him those questions. He will willingly answer. And they say, Daryl doesn't talk about that stuff. No, I don't. You can go do that with someone else, but I ain't no regular black boy. And then the way some of you guys come to me and say, yeah, you're gay, but you're cool. You're cool because you don't do too much. You don't do too much. Let me tell you something, ho. I don't need your validation. I don't need your approval, because the only reason why I'm okay or I'm cool is because I'm not flamboyant. There is a hatred of the feminine. And I say that so much, it trickles down to so many things, right? There is a hatred of the feminine and feminine ways and feminine things, right? That men scuff and try to scuff that stuff out. They try to snuff that stuff out where they feel like the most feminine thing. Guys aren't supposed to take care of their hair. They don't take care of their face. They don't this, they don't that. Don't act like this, don't act like that. No, you need to be tough. You need to be masculine. You need to be an alpha male. All that stupid nonsense, right? You like me because I'm clearly and unapologetically queer, but I'm not flamboyant. I don't wear nails and acrylics, right? You like me so long as I don't wear miniskirts or dresses, so long as I don't wear pink. Ho, I don't do none of this for you. Even if I did, I don't care about your approval. There are some gay guys who do this to spite you, right? Just because you say you're cool, they switch on the stuff you don't like. Because as I've always said, God forbid we offend the straight male who's so sensitive and his weak ass ego. It's not about you, ho. It's about me. Then you scream to the heavens and start talking about, I'm not homophobic. You don't want that title. But the reality is, let me let you all know something. If you don't accept a queer person in their entirety, and there are just some things you can't stand, you tolerate, I'm so sorry to tell you. One of these boys had the nerve to tell me or ask me about another guy and his eye color and asked if he was gay. I said, I don't know, but we wonder. And he said it would be a shame if he was, because he would get a lot of girls with those eyes. I said, you sound very homophobic. He said, what does that mean? That I don't like gay people? I don't, but you're cool. Let me tell you something, little boy. And I made it very clear, and I told him this. I said, I have a burning hatred for people who think like you, because I've been through the fire and the rain for going through acceptance and tolerance and people kind of liking me or liking me only because of this, that, and the third, right? When you're an oppressed minority, you get over some stuff, right? There's some things you just get tired of taking. I left him where he was at, and I made it so abundantly clear that I can't tolerate these childish actions and this ignorance. And he still to this day does not understand why I don't want to have nothing to do with him, right? The lack of accountability, the lack of self-reflection, right? That's what this podcast is about, right? Awareness, the things people choose not to look at. You know, the bigger part of this podcast is all about, realizing that life is so amazing because you realize where you've been, how you got there, right? How you can come out of it and the lessons you've learned, right? It's those pivotal moments in life. And as it pertains to this episode, now I'm going to explain the biggest moment where I had to come to learn acceptance versus tolerance, right? There was a girl in my college named Maxine, right? And we were sweet friends. We were cool. We had lunch together. We laughed. We talked. I was just learning to Dutch braid and do French braids and cornrows. And I would often braid her hair, right? And that was my good practice. And we had a great bond together, right? We texted, we laughed, we gossiped. It was a good time. But there was a moment where we were in class, during a break period, I think. And I mentioned something about, I think my art or, something I had made. And she said that she wasn't really for that, queerness. She said something about her family not liking that. She said, she's Catholic. She said, my family doesn't really believe in that, but you do what you want. We're not really for that, but you do what you want. In that moment, I stayed silent. I kind of looked at her and looked off into the distance, looked to my left and my right. I said, I got to go. I got to go and walk away and reflect on what you just said, right? Because at that point, I always thought that people who were straight, you were either for gay people or you were not, right? I did not know that there was an in-between, right? I went to the counselors on college campus, right? And I sought advice. I sought comfort. I didn't get it. I did not get it, right? These were two Christian women who harked to my friend's idea. They said Maxine was right. They said that in the same way that a person does not accept a gay person, right? That's the same as saying, I have a cousin who may smoke and drink and act an ass. And it's like, that's still my cousin. I love her. But that aspect, I don't really get along with. But that don't mean I don't love her. I said, but this isn't something that you choose. And say, yes, it is. Because it's like you go, you smoke, you go and drink. These are the things you choose to do. And that ruined me. On that day, that ruined me. I said, that didn't feel right either. I said, I need to get an opinion from somebody who is queer. That's when I got it. That's when they said, I can understand how that might have hurt you. I went to my own sister. And that's when my sister told me no. Because that being your sexuality is not something you can choose, not something that is something that can be separated. That's a part of you, right? That's when I learned, right? And she said, somebody either accepts all of you, because as humans, we all want to be loved, accepted, right? And if a person can't accept all of you, they just tolerate you. That's when I learned the difference. It hurt my core. I was angry for 10 days. I couldn't understand it. She couldn't understand it either, because I distanced myself from her. But instead of coming to me, instead of working something out, because I felt that there wasn't a conversation to be had, right? Because she was going to have her beliefs and I was going to have mine. And I felt like we just need to get away from each other. But it hurt because I could not understand how I could have a friend who didn't accept that part of me, right? It felt like a blow. And it opened my eyes. It opened my eyes and made me realize that this type of energy can expand to so many other reaches, including the ones that I explained earlier. That there are some people who don't really like us or enjoy us, but you want to mimic us, copy us, right? You want to take our lingo and our style, but you hate us deep down because I don't really agree with that. Well, listen, ho, I don't have to agree with you either. And I loved you and loved every aspect of you, right? Because it goes back to what we say about children, right? Parents who don't accept their queer children, right? Because the parents don't want to accept the child's sexuality, but you brought that child into the world and the child accepts the parent in their entirety, right? But it's when you start putting these rules and these ultimatums and this unacceptance that now the child don't want to have nothing to do with you, right? Let's be clear about that. I want to explain and show you all what it feels like and what it looks like to go through these points in life of discovering yourself and what it looks like to heal and choose not to heal, right? Because back when I was in college, the same girl, Maxine, and another guy, Michael, right? Now, this was a love triangle. I'll admit that, when I was younger, I was really craving affection, intimacy, love. I wanted to be in a relationship. So looking back, I realized that my interest in Michael was out of, I believe, yearning. But long story short, Michael liked Maxine. I liked Michael, right? And it was all unrequited, right? She didn't want to have anything to do with him. And he tried his best to get her attention. But she thought that he was already not her type. She didn't like the way he looked. She thought he was nasty, right? But I tried to express how much I was interested in him. And he shied me away. He shooed me away, said no, in the most subtle, calm ways. It wasn't belligerent. It wasn't out loud. But he showed me he wasn't interested. And I felt after a while, there were some instances where he was mean. He was rude. He was aggressive. And looking back, I wish I tore his head off, right? But I realized that, this was out of a place of yearning. And I thought, this is an example of childish behavior, right? When you're unhealed, because he had rejected me. And so I only befriended Maxine to get him further away from her, right? Terrible. Absolutely terrible. Childish high school antics, right? I was 19. I only befriended her to keep him away. And I would start to say, look at him. He this. Oh my God, girl, don't talk to him. He's horrible. All of this stuff, right? To make him hurt worse. And it worked. But in the end, I realized how foolish I looked. Because I, in a way, had, the friendship between me and Maxine had died, right? And going back to Andrea Warren, my professor, she told me relationships born in the dirt will always end in hurt, right? Because it goes to my saying, I just feel like, when you can never win when you're dirty, right? It just feels like you did something out of spite. You did something out of anger because you didn't get your way. And so you do something that is drastic. And you were never going to win when you were dirty, right? Now, fast forward to today. What's so amazing and how life is so amazing is that it repeats itself. You see the synchronicities, right? You have a chance to do something different. What are you going to do differently, right? Because now there's a guy at this job that I have a crush on, right? And the thing about it is he ticks every box of what I'm looking for in a man, right? And, at this point I have evolved, right? I don't fear rejection. I feel that whatever is for you is for you. If it doesn't happen, that's okay. I'm not hiding anything. If it doesn't work out, that's fine, whatever, right? But, I'm still weighing out whether or not I should speak to him because I don't know. Like I said earlier, you can't look, act, or sound gay. So I don't know. And there are a lot of people who present a certain way, but you would never know, right? That's why you don't know if you don't take a risk, right? That's where a lot of people need to step out on faith, right? So I'm going to say there are, three of us again in this story. I'm going to say my crush. I'm going to call this other guy Joshua. And the girl, we'll call her Sheila, right? And I'm a part of this. So, Joshua has been showing me that he has been into me since I have gotten at this job, right? Looking at me, showing that he's interested. You know how, and that's another thing that a lot of us queer guys, we know this unspoken little psychic idea. Like we try to speak to each other by look away and look again and look and stare, right? Instead of anybody using words, right? Nobody wants to use words. No one wants to stand on their 2 feet and say what they want. Why? Because we fear rejection. We fear criticism, right? So Joshua spends all his time just a looking, right? But I never gave him the time of day. I'm not interested, right? But I'm interested in my crush, right? So I decide to give my crush a note, right? I feel like a little schoolgirl, right? Because I'm the person who will stand on my 2 toes and speak, but I don't know what to say, but I'm still going to take action, right? So I gave my crush the note, but my crush, not being interested, or whatever reason, gay panic or whatever, gave the note to Joshua, right? So Joshua comes before me feeling offended, feeling angry, feeling like he can tell a bitch like me who I am, right? When I go back and say, we know who you are. We know your sexuality. You have no right telling me anything, right? And he knew he was wrong for that. Turns out my crush is actually interested in my friend Sheila, right? But Sheila isn't interested in my crush, right? And that just goes back to the same dynamic when I was in college with Michael and Maxine. Michael likes Maxine. I like Michael. But we all walked away from that situation unhappy, right? My crush likes Sheila. I like my crush. But we all walked away from that situation unhappy because Sheila doesn't want to have anything to do with my crush. He's not her type. He doesn't act the way that she prefers a man to act, right? But I do, right? And so because I have checked Joshua and shown him that I'm not interested, but I want my crush, Joshua has done everything to try to ruin a connection between me and my crush. He's tried to play matchmaker between Sheila and my crush. He's tried to spread rumors. He's tried to say all these terrible things about me. The same thing I did to Michael. I told Maxine he was this, he was that. Yeah, I'm going to say all this stuff because I'm upset you have rejected me. Fast forward to today. This is the same situation. I'm looking at my own past. I was Joshua. I was him at one point. All these childish antics, getting in my way, making all these scenes, waving. You're trying to stay in my view so that I see you. That's the same thing I did, right? When the reality is, it would have been so much better to come before me and express your feelings and accept whatever answer I gave you, right? That's what I should have done, right? If I was healed, if I was together, if I was better back then in college, I would have told Michael, I would have accepted the fate, I would have left it alone. But instead, I couldn't speak. I acted childish and I acted reckless. And that's what Joshua was doing, right? But as I said, you can never win when you're dirty. Because in doing all of this, Joshua has shown he's not healed. He fears rejection. He fears what I'm going to say, right? He doesn't want to express his sexuality to the world in the way that I can because he's worried about what is his daddy going to say? What are his coworkers going to say? What is his family going to say, right? But a bitch like me can walk into that job. I can walk in my confidence and my truth because I don't answer to anyone, right? And you all envy that. And you wish you could be like this, right? But that's the difference between choosing to heal and choosing to stay hurt. And you act reckless. But what do you believe you're going to achieve by acting like a child, right? Because I acted like a child with Michael and I wasn't any closer to him. So Joshua acting foolish around me is not going to make me choose him. But here's the thing. In the end, my crush, I believe, is interested in me, right? He won't say it, right? Because at first, he does everything to avoid eye contact with me. He doesn't want to speak. We've never had a conversation, right? But the way I see it is, I don't feel like I should. I have given you a letter. I've expressed what I think, and you didn't read it, right? But you're curious. You're interested, right? So now you're staring. Now you're glancing. Now you're doing all these things to get my attention, right? But the way I saw you as an adult, the more you avoid me, the more you make this ridiculous, the more you are afraid to step out of your comfort zone because you have Christian parents, because you're afraid of what your homeboys are going to think, because you're afraid of what everybody around you is going to think, you start to look less like an adult and more like a child, right? And this just goes all the way back to what I was saying before. Everyone is afraid to be vulnerable because they're afraid of what everybody around them is going to think. But I want to make something very clear, right? In the past, we could be exiled, we could be executed, right? We could be jailed for being gay, right? But in this day and age, we have laws, we have rights, right? You can't be killed. You can't be locked up. You can't be exiled. We can be married. We can have families. We can adopt and have children. So nothing can happen to us for living in our truth, right? So if nothing drastic can happen for you expressing your sexuality, what is the problem? What's stopping you from living in your truth, right? I'm worried about what my mama gonna say, what my daddy gonna say, my brothers, my sisters, my cousin. That's all it is, right? My sister used to tell me, because I was self-conscious about my hair or my clothes or wearing this or wearing that. Oh, I don't know if this looks right. My sister would always say, you're worried about it because you're worried about what others are gonna say. It's the people factor. If people weren't there, if you were the only person in the world, you wouldn't be worried about it. You're only worried because what you think everybody is going to say about you, right? When you remove that factor, you can live authentically, right? Because here's the thing that I also say for myself, right? Everybody has an opinion. We all judge. We all think thoughts, right? But if you're listening to the words of people who don't agree with what you do, what you say, how you act, whatever, if you hear all that, and you say, all right, fine, I'm just going to change. And you change in the aspect they want you to change. Well, what has changed? Their lives are still the same. They still go and do what they want, right? They may be happy that you've changed and done what they believe is right. But what has really changed? And has it changed for the better or the worse? Nothing. You've changed an aspect about yourself. that you're unhappy with, right? So why would you sit up here and be somebody that you're not and then feel you can come before me and then try to check me? You feel like we can be friends? You feel like you can interrogate me and ask me all these questions? If you cannot come to me with a head on your shoulders and a purpose, we have nothing to talk about. And if you want to act reckless and unhealed like Joshua has, we don't associate. And to people like my crush, if you feel a certain ways, but you can't act on it or stand on your own 2 feet to speak, just like my girl Fantasia says in Free Yourself, if you don't want me, don't talk to me. And another thing, if you don't like me, don't look at me, right? Stand 10 toes down. Like you told everyone, you're straight. So be that. And I'm going to explain how I've decided to heal, right? Because in the past, I would have just been mad and never learned from the situation, right? But knowing that my crush liked Sheila, I told Sheila to give my crush a chance, right? I said, give him a chance because he might be everything you need, right? And I simply stepped aside, right? Even though it didn't work out, I accepted it for what it was, took the opportunity. I was the bringer for everyone to reveal their feelings and show the real situation, right? Because just from a simple note did all of this stuff transpire, right? But I was mature enough to step aside, right? You know, I have heard and seen so many stories of so many people, right, who have had traumatic childhoods, where they've had abusive parents, parents that kicked them out, right? Families that were just dysfunctional because of, oh, we just can't accept you being this way, right? I've seen so many stories of pain and hurt. I've seen some stories where people have just been so happy, where they've had parents who's like, I love my kids no matter what, and they're free to do whatever, and all of this freedom, right? I didn't have all of that, right? I'm not going to tell you a story of just complete pain, and I'm not going to tell you a story of just complete happiness, because I still had my troubles, right? It just wasn't very loud, right? Because growing up, you know, in the early 2000s, of course, this was even before or around when gay marriage was even legal, right? It's like this was a time everybody had their stigma, their ideas, their whatever, right? But it's hard to have to face the world and, you know, you're getting criticism from your peers in school, even teachers, other adults. And then you have to hear that from your parents, right? Everybody talking about, why do you want this? Why do you want that? Why do you want to wear this? Don't do that. Don't walk like this. All of this extraness, all this nitpicking stuff, right? It starts to make a child look and see, well, what's wrong with me, right? Why can't I be accepted, right? There is nothing positive that grows out of that. And you all know that. You know, me, actually myself, I had a little YouTube show, right? It was with puppets, right? And I would play around with my sister mostly, and I would involve my parents, right? And I would dress up some of the puppets and the dolls, and I would like really doll them up and make them all pretty, right? And I had discovered some ways to, you know, create some hairstyles, right? And I used a flat iron, right? And my mother gets it, and she's like, "Why are you using my flat iron? You straightening your hair like a girl." What? What? Or then you, like years before, my father's criticizing the way I'm walking outside to get the mail. Or there's a guy that was in our neighborhood when I was a child, and my father said, "Don't be like him when you grow up because of the way he wears his hair and the way he walks." You know, I got older, and by the time I got in college, there were so many things I wanted to discover about myself. There were things I always wanted to wear, things I always wanted to do, that I said, you know what, I'm going to try this. I bought some clip-on earrings, right? Because I like Queen Victoria. I like, you know, period dramas. And I saw the earrings that she had, so I bought a cameo for myself. It was a clip-on earring, right? I went to school, I went to college, right? And I would get compliments all the time. Everybody, I love your earring, I love your earring, I love your earring. Thank you, thank you, thank you. The secretaries, the teachers, the students, everywhere I went, right? But the minute I get in the car for my father to pick me up, you need to take that earring out your ear. Really? We don't want anybody to see you wearing this, right? But just a month prior, before my birthday, my sister had her ears pierced for real. But it's okay because she's a girl. But a man is not supposed to wear earrings, even if they're clip-ons. You got a problem that I'm walking in the store with a bag because I don't have a phone, because I don't have things that are a necessity for me to write down, for me to have. You're questioning, why do you have a bag? Why do you want to dye your hair blonde? All these nitpick things. And this goes all the way back to what I was saying. It's the fear of what is everybody around us going to think, because my parents are so obsessed with making sure we look like the perfect family that anything that's out of place, right? You're worried because they always said, we don't want anybody to look at us and think X, Y, and Z. Well, let me tell you something, ho. Because today I wear earrings, my hair is straight, it's curly, I wear what I wear, how I wear it, what I decide to do, right? It's not just because I'm an adult and I can do these things now, right? It's because I don't care what anybody around me thinks. And if I had believed you all, if I had believed that, it would have tore me apart, right? Because look at my ex, look at my foolish ex, right? His mother was a deacon. He grew up around Christian people to the point this buffoon, right, has the nerve to say we're going to hell because we're gay, right? But you feel like, well, that's what I am, even though it's not right. It's because you know what you are, but you believe the poison of those around you. And this is why people hate some parts about themselves on the inside. This is why people may even claim that they're gay or bi, but still hate some aspects about themselves, right? Because you listen to foolishness. If I had to listen to that, I probably would have been destroyed today, right? But because I'm such a strong person and I've come out on top, I eventually, even before I moved out, I eventually told my parents, you all need to stop telling me this, right? I do not have the patience to hear no more of this. You either keep silent, you either congratulate me or keep silent, right? Because nothing is changing over here, right? What happened is they remain silent because I don't care whether you hate or love what I do, right? Because it's not on your body. Right? And if you feel like we can't be seen in public together because of what I decide to wear, which again is not outlandish, right? But if you have such an issue because I choose to wear an earring, a simple gold earring when I'm out with my family, we don't have to go out at all. You've been so sweet. And the thing that really got me hard is back then when I talked to my professor, Andrea Warren, right? She told me, it's hard, right? Because your family is supposed to be your rock, right? The worries and the problems of the world may come at you, but you're supposed to have your family to fall back on. And if you don't have that, you feel like you have no one, right? And that is something they never understood, right? And this is the reason why there's so much pain around people who grow up around families who don't accept that, right? I can't see that anymore. I cannot see changing or suppressing who I am to better suit the expectations of somebody else. Let's say that again. I cannot see changing any aspect of myself to better suit the expectations of somebody else. That's what I need for you all to understand. So to anyone that's struggling to come out of the closet, struggling to accept their identity, struggling to come to terms with what their life might look like, what I need for you to do is to separate your feelings of rejections, separate your feelings of what everybody else around you is going to think, right? And this is why I say life is amazing, right? Because the quote of one person has inspired me. I come here to inspire you all, right? In my actions and my words. I want you to remember what my sister told me, right? The only reason you don't do it, right, is because you're worried about what everyone else thinks. When you remove that aspect, then you're not afraid, right? So live life that way, right? Because if you choose to continue in life unhealed and going through pain, hiding and lying, right? You'll never be whole. Because we've seen and you know what it looks like to not live in your truth and the problems you create along the way, right? But if you're so worried about what everybody else is going to think, I want you to remember something. I want you all to hear me, right? It's easy, right? It's more acceptable, more able for people to accept a gay man or a gay woman, right? But nobody wants to accept an asshole. Because again, as humans, we all want to feel connected. We all want to be chosen. We all want to feel a part of a community. But how do you expect to build something lasting, right? If you've chosen not to heal.